Patricia Arquette or Jennifer Love Hewitt. Both of those had played mediums in different shows, whether it be The Ghost Whisperer or Medium.
Just in case you didn't know, I'm Brian.
And I'm Matthew.
And this is Road Trip Recap.
Spoilers up ahead, as today we are going to be talking about the Asylum episode of Supernatural.
And also, salt, salt as you fly, do you make ghosts say bye-bye? Let's hit the road.
And buckle up. Buckle up, let's hit the road. Our episode today starts out at the Roosevelt Asylum. Roosevelt?
Roosevelt Asylum.
Or the Roosevelt Asylum.
Yeah.
Whatever. And where?
I'm trying to identify what kind of an accent that was just now. I got nothing.
Stewie Griffin.
The Roosevelt Asylum.
That's straight Stewie Griffin is what I heard. That's what happens when I read and then try to say things. That's how I wrote it. Roosevelt.
Can we please use that in the opening? I just gotta get out of my system.
Sure.
All right.
Our episode today starts out in the Roosevelt Asylum in Rockford, Illinois. We get a scene of some kids breaking in, using bolt cutters to cut the chain to check out this old, closed-down asylum. The police show up because, killjoys and whatnot.
Although I've never understood how breaking into an old, creepy asylum is considered awesome. Like, maybe that's just my own paranoia.
Obviously, you've never broken into old, creepy asylums when you were younger.
The fact that I'm alive, yeah.
I've been there.
Oh.
Anyways,
The
police show up, and then we get a little bit of the legend of the Roosevelt Asylum on, why kids go in. It's supposed to be haunted, and if you spend the night, it'll drive you insane. The one officer is Walter Kelly, who is played by Peter Benson, who we see come back in season 9, I believe. He's part of a werewolf family that Garth is staying with. And I believe his name is Joba.
Oh, Joba.
Yeah. So that is a reoccurring character from this episode. One that doesn't stand out as much. There's one of the patients that we see later on as one of the ghosts that you may not recognize because he was in the second episode and he played the Wendigo. And they got him to come back just to play like one of the ghosts and everything.
So basically we're looking at just like a lot of makeup on both occasions.
Yeah, so I couldn't recognize him.
No.
I didn't see any Wendigos running around in there. We get the police, they split up looking for the kids and everything. The one officer, he finds the kids, kicks them out. The other one, as he's looking, he goes into this one room, has like a biohazard symbol on it, which, based on what I've heard, it's referenced in there that the hospital closed down in 1964. The biohazard symbol as depicted wasn't created until 1966. So a little bit of a factual error within this. We follow the officer home, and his wife's having a little bit of a lover's spat that doesn't end like most do. Like he just decides he's done and shoots his wife and then himself. So that's kind of how we start out our episode today. In our next scene, we cut to Sam and Dean. They're trying to find Dad still. They can't find him, and especially after the last episode where they went home, like they kind of saw their mom. Like they really want to get a hold of him, but nothing's working out. Then Dean gets what appears to be a call, but it's just a text, and more vague coordinates. So it's just whole numbers, which is not how coordinates work. However, those coordinates are really close to Rockford, Illinois. Yeah. So this better than the last time. We got a real city with close enough to real coordinates. We're looking good. They do a little bit of research, find out that there's the asylum. The officer just killed his wife and himself. There's been other reported deaths over the years. So they go to check it out. So we cut to the bar. The other officer, he's having a drink, and Dean shows up, and he's a reporter for the Chicago Tribune, Nigel Tufnell. fictional lead guitarist from This Is Spinal Tap.
Yep.
He's asking questions and being obnoxious, and the officer's just like, come on, man, like, really? And then Sam shows up and kicks him out, and it's just like, hey, leave this guy alone. This guy's a hero. Give him a beer. And then, like, appeals to his sympathy and, like, gets the story and everything.
Good cop, bad cop. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Sam and Dean go to investigate the asylum, and they find out that the south wing has been open, and that seems to be where a lot of the dangers are coming from. So before, when the people had died, they were also in that south wing, and so it had been locked up. It's now open, so they're going to investigate. And here we get a series of Dean just kind of mocking Sam. So let me know if you see any dead people, Haley Joel, because as it was revealed to Dean in the last episode, Sam has some sort of like psychic connection. So there's the Sixth Sense reference here. Then you get Dean asking Sam who makes a hotter psychic, him, Patricia Arquette, or Jennifer Love Hewitt. Both of those had played mediums in different shows, whether it be The Ghost Whisperer or Medium. How was I supposed to know that I had already said the name? As they're exploring the asylum, we get a little bit more of the family drama, and in the process they find a name of a Dr. Sanford Elcott. So they decide to do some research, and there was a practicing psychiatrist in town with the same last name, so going to check it out. As just kind of a little tidbit, while Sam is in the waiting room, he's reading an issue of Men's Health magazine. That specific issue of Men's Health had an article where there was an interview by a unknown actor at the time, Jared Padalecki. And so, that's the issue
awesome
that he's reading. We get Sam going to see the psychiatrist, and real awkward because he's just trying to get information about the case. Psychiatrist wants to talk about him and his feelings. They compromise, and he learns about the Roosevelt riots.
The Roosevelt riots.
He learns about the Roosevelt riots here. So this leads them into kind of knowing what they have to do. Like, the other doctor was attacked by patients. Presumably he's still in the asylum, so they need to go back, find him, salt and burn the body. In our next scene, we get more kids breaking in. So we get Kat and Gavin. This one, like, I had to look it up because I was like, Gavin looks awfully familiar. And the actor who plays Gavin, I know more as Wes from Heroes.
Oh.
He's the flying kid.
Mm-hmm.
But as I was looking him up, he also plays Harvey Dent in Gotham, which never watched it, but like, so we got a lot of superheroes coming into this. Another superhero non-cameo in the trivia for this episode in particular. Apparently, because Jensen had been on Smallville in the past, in some of the scenes in the Impala, Tom Welling, or Clark Kent from Smallville, is actually in the backseat hiding. Just because.
Just for funsies.
Yeah. So we got Superman, we got Batman covered, we just got all the superheroes moving in.
All the DC superheroes moving in.
Well, I mean, it is on CW.
Yeah, that's true.
They do all the DC shows, so.
That's a valid point.
Kat and Gavin, they get separated, and then Gavin, well, Kat doesn't want to go in. She's scared and everything. Gavin finds Kat and is just like, oh, you decided to join me anyways, but it's not her. It's just a creepy ghost lady just creeping on a kid that's in the asylum.
Do they make out with her?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That happened.
You're not really in a haunted asylum until you kiss a crazy ghost.
So
I'm told.
Yeah. Because you've never been.
I've never been.
I have been, so you know what that means.
I won't ask.
And then I won't tell. So we get to our next scene. Sam and Dean show up, and then they start investigating. We get some creepy ghosts just kind of wandering around them, not really trying to be seen. They're using their camera. There's orbs floating everywhere. The typical like ghost hunter stuff.
Yep.
Yellow light.
By ghost hunters, you mean ghost facers, right?
Not yet.
Yeah.
We gotta find the hellhounds first.
Yep.
They end up finding Kat, and then they want to get her out of there because ghosts and danger and crazy. But she's like, no, I'm not leaving until we find Gavin. So, fine. So they split up again. During this time, we get Dean lecturing Kat, and it was like, you ever watch any horror movies? Don't do that stuff. We get Sam, he finds Gavin, kind of reveals that ran into a creepy ghost lady trying to whisper sweet nothings into his ear. And, saying, well, what'd you say? I don't know. I freaking ran. I was terrified. Meanwhile, as Dean and Kat are walking around, she's like, you're hurting my arm. What are you talking about hurting your arm? And then she just gets dragged into her room.
Yep.
And locked in with another creepy ghost. At this point, Sam shows up as Dean's trying to get her out and is like, just listen to what the ghost has to say. What do you mean you listen? I'm not listening. Anyway, she listens. That's all they wanted. They let her out.
That really could have turned a lot worse.
Turns out it's the doctor.
Yep.
Just listen to what he has to say. Ah! Okay, nope, maybe not.
However, we could always play that off as Sam's hunter intuition coming forth of oh, this is what the ghosts are actually after.
You mean his psychic intuition?
Or both. I mean, either one.
The sweet nothing that was whispered into Kat's ear was 137, which they determined as a room number, and then they split up again. As they split up, Sam's trying to get the kids out. Dean's going to investigate the room to try to see what he can find out. Sam realizes they're locked in. They can't get out, so they got to figure something else out before they can get these kids to safety. At this point, Dean comes across a patient journal in the old doctor's office and kind of learns what a whack job he is. Or was. Well, I guess still is.
Yeah.
And throughout this episode, we get a lot of Jack Nicholson references from Dean. We get One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. We get 2 references of The Shining. Just all about Dean and his man, Jack. We cut back to Sam with the kids. He gets a call from Dean. Hey, you gotta come to the basement. Which, yay.
Yay. Creepy basement in an asylum.
So in order to feel confident, leaving the kids, Sam leaves Kat in charge with a shotgun with some rock salt, just in case anything shows up, because Gavin's useless. Sam goes down into the basement and does not find Dean. He instead finds the doctor and gets attacked, and so then we cut to another scene, so we don't know what's happening yet. Dean's heading back to the front and almost gets shot by Kat because she's a little on edge.
Yeah, just a tad.
He finds out that Sam went into the basement, so he's like, okay, well, watch out for yourselves and me. Don't shoot me. And then he goes and finds Sam in the basement, talks to him for a little bit, and Sam's acting kind of shifty, but just lets it go. And then they're trying to find a hidden room, and Sam's just like, there's nothing here, I'm telling you, let's go. And at this point, Dean kind of becomes Indiana Jones from the Temple of Doom. Oh, there's a breeze and it's leading me to this room. That's what I was reminded of anyways. And then Sam just proceeds to shoot Dean with rock salt.
Yeah.
But shoots him into the room. And there's some back and forth where we get a little bit of Sam's frustrations coming out and everything. And Dean's just like,
the doctor did not in fact make him better.
No, turns out.
No.
Some techniques aren't effective, that being one of them.
Yep.
So Dean's just like, here, use my gun because it's going to work a heck of a lot better than rock salt. So if you're going to do it, just make it quick. But the gun's empty.
Yep.
Which I find odd that Dean would be carrying around an empty handgun.
I mean, if they're going up against ghosts, it's not the lady in white, so it's not going to work here.
That's fair. I don't know.
Why keep an unloaded gun on his person, though? I don't know.
Maybe it was loaded, and then... I got nothing. You know what? I'm just convinced Dean's Batman. So here we have, Dean then goes to find Dr. Elcott, and in the process, Dr. Elcott finds Dean. They find each other.
Yep.
And the doctor's trying to now fix Dean, and Dean fixes the doctor instead. He salts, burns the body, and this one we get a slight different ending as this ghost turns to dust and just kind of like, yeah, like he's almost still there after he's not there anymore.
Yeah.
And I think it's just them playing with different effects, like before they really settled on, one that they really liked, I guess.
Well, it's kind of like how the demon, like the initial first demon was like a little bit more pixelated mist, like a little, it wasn't very gaseous, whereas
More
as
like
we got...
an insect swarm. More like an insect swarm.
Yeah, a little bit, and then as it got a little bit further down the road, it suddenly was more of like a gas or a cloud of steam.
So anyways, we get them at their hotel. Dean's sleeping, his phone's ringing, so Sam answers, and it's their dad. And so that's all we get, and then it cuts to black. So that's it for the recap on our episode. So tell me about Salt.
So this is actually the first episode that we get to see Salt used against spirits as they get to break out one of the toys that become a mainstay in the series, which is the rock salt shotgun.
They've been teasing the Salt a lot. I'm glad we finally get to see it in play.
Now we actually get to finally see it in action. And basically what it does is they load up a round of rock salt, they fire it at a ghost, and it makes kind of the ghost just dissipate and disappear. So I always got curious as to where they found that idea for ghosts and if that's something that actually is in like the mythology.
Sure.
And upon doing a little bit of research, so salt has been important to the human race since recorded history even began. Salt has been used as a way to preserve food without refrigeration.
Okay.
Also, the human body needs sodium. It needs salt to be able to function correctly. And a lot of our food, a lot of like animals and things like that will have sodium in its system already. But if you're eating mostly like a vegetarian diet, things like that, you do need to supplement with a little bit of salt. But really the big thing was that it was used to preserve food. Now, especially if you're starting to get an empire going, if you're starting to not just have little pods of people that are moving around, but trying to really settle into an area, you're going to need to start finding ways to preserve food so that you can store food for long periods of time. And salt was a huge way of doing that. Salt has been traditionally used as currency. Salt has been fought over, had wars go over it.
So wait, are you trying to say ghosts make food go bad?
Ghosts make...
Is that where we're going with this?
Well, for the long period of time, salt then has been looked at as a form of loyal. It's been used to represent loyalty. It's been used to represent purity is the big one, because it is thought that by, when you're preserving your food, you're stopping it from going bad. You're stopping it from becoming impure to, like, in a word, impure to eat.
That makes sense.
And so salt has actually become very important in a lot of different cultures, especially in a lot of religions. In Shinto religions, in Japan, salt was a very important component during some of their ceremonies. And even today in modern times, you will see sumo wrestlers throwing salt in the ring, and that's to consecrate and purify the ring before a bout. In the Christian faith and even in the Jewish faith, salt has been brought up several times. Jesus referred to his followers as the salt of the earth. And in the Old Testament, salt became a little bit more of a curse as Lot's wife was turned into a pillar of salt. And then in the Mahayana Buddhist faith, salt is also a very important component in their ceremonies. So salt's been very important and has also been used after a time, as it's been looked upon to purify and consecrate. It's also been thought that this will now keep out evil spirits or purify evil spirits, to the point where in modern day Wiccan and pagan faiths, salt is considered to be an element of the earth, and the earth element is then used to purify during a cleansing. So oftentimes you'll have a traditional seining or smudging ceremony taking place, where you're walking around with the sage smudging, and seining is the Irish version of that. And then
does that involve more alcohol?
In my world, it does. Yes.
Perfect.
So, but then also lining doorways and windowsills with salt in order to prevent evil spirits from coming out. And it's been explained that salt being a pure representation of the earth, when an evil spirit not being of this earth touches it, it basically causes a does not compute moment with their with their incorporeal bodies, and they kind of just dissipate.
There's
a
glitch in the matrix.
A glitch in the matrix. So there's a lot of real world applications to using salt against ghosts and against spirits. Now, the whole idea of using rock salt in a shotgun is definitely a less ceremonial way of going about getting rid of an evil spirit. But considering we're looking at, in the supernatural world, a much more run and gun, you don't get a lot of like ceremonies of trying to purify a house, or even the exorcisms after a certain amount of time become less ceremony and become more of like a chant in order to drive out the demon. So it makes sense in the world of supernatural to have a rock salt shotgun. Now, as for Dean getting shot with that rock salt shotgun, I decided to go down a rabbit hole of, is rock salt really a good non-lethal option to use against people? And
I know a few people that have been shot with rock salt.
True. But then, in a couple of ballistic studies that have been done, doing it from where Sam shot Dean actually would basically have the relatively same effect of actually shooting someone with just with a regular shotgun instead of birdshot. It would still have the same effect on someone's body with that. So whether Dean could have walked away from that one is a little bit in the realm of fiction.
You know what happened is he had an idea something was up. He unloaded his gun and then like lined his body with the shells to make like a makeshift salt-proof vest.
It's like a chainmail. It's like a chainmail with bullets.
Yep.
But getting that loaded up against ghosts, basically, you are just putting the physical representation of like Earth right into the ghost's body and causing it to just dissipate. So this is one of those that not only supernatural kind of built upon the myths and the mythology that was already there, but they kind of made it their own. And that's one of the reasons why this episode's one of my favorites. Well, that, and also you actually get to see people shooting ghosts, which is pretty cool. So I think Supernatural hit it out of the park with the whole salt representation.
It's definitely a mainstay and a reoccurring, aspect of the show, so that probably factors in.
Now, there is one other more melee way to get rid of ghosts, which we will be touching on in a later episode, and that is good old iron. But I think that is going to do it for this episode of Asylum. The next one I believe that we have coming up is the Scarecrow.
The Scarecrow. We got a lot to unpack in that episode. We get another demon encounter. We get the Scarecrow. We get the first separation of the brothers.
Yep. Now, the Scarecrow is another one of my favorite episodes from this first season, so I'm looking forward to that one.
Thanks. All right. Well, till next time, stay safe, buckle up, and
we got work to do.